TCU offense was really good today. 7 touchdowns. They scored 49 points. A little bit of an issue in the second quarter. Whole team honestly had issues in the second quarter. We'll talk about that next. But Frogs win. Most important thing, 49-28 over Arizona. It's coming at you right now. Your post-game show here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. TCU is 7-4 after a 49-14 victory, or 49-28 victory, over Arizona. Not sure where I got 14 in my head. They won the ballgame 49-28 over the Wildcats at Amon G. Carter Stadium this afternoon. Odd game all the way around. Second quarter, felt like the team kind of just slept walk through that, and it was 14-13 right before halftime. And I'll go through the sequence later on in the show, but TCU scored a touchdown from 20 yards out. Savion Williams direct snap, takes it to the house on a 4th-and-1 play with 20 seconds left in the half. That made it 21-13. I think that drive and then the first drive of the second half where TCU also scored a touchdown to make it 28-13, I felt like those were the biggest drives in the game. And the fact that TCU was able to respond well in those moments really put this ball game away and helped them salt away a victory. Defensively, overall, I think they played pretty well. I've said this the last few weeks, and I think I said it when we were talking about keys to the game. This defense, personnel-wise, they fight really hard. I think they were improved having Marcus Deal and Hakeem Ajibalaiba back in the lineup today. Those dudes stepped up and helped in the run game especially. It feels like they can play one good half right now. Or maybe a quarter here and then a quarter where they struggle. I thought early on in this ballgame they did a great job and then allowed Arizona to get back in it, but buckled down when they had to, and honestly only gave up one touchdown drive in the second half because the last touchdown was a defensive touchdown. Ken Seals, trying to run the clock out, scrambled around and got hit and fumbled, and it was a scoop and score play. So they played well, I think, by and large, and for the most part. It was just some moments here and there where they struggled. Offensively, really good night. 7 touchdowns. They were very good in the red zone again, which is honestly pretty remarkable, the success they've had down in scoring territory, given their problems being able to run the ball, even with some of the things they've unlocked with Savion in the backfield and taking snaps at the quarterback position as well. But Cam Cook found the end zone a couple of times. Savion found the end zone a couple of times. They did a great job punching it in when they had scoring opportunities. And my issue with the offense, and both of them were kind of highlighted in ways tonight. Josh Hoover threw an interception where he just kind of floated it up. I don't know what he was trying to do. Watching the replay, it looked like DJ Rogers was coming in on a crossing pattern. He was hoping to hit him with a completion, but he would have had to zip that ball in there. And instead, off his back foot, he just sort of floated it up in the air. Arizona able to come down with the interception. Ended up being no harm, no foul. TCU's defense stood up, and then the Frogs went down and scored. But that was a bad moment. And they just go through lulls. Like, it's hard to articulate it, and it's difficult to pinpoint it from a stats perspective because at the end of the day, this afternoon, Josh ended up with 252 yards passing. They ran for 147 yards. J.P. Richardson had over 100 yards receiving. They played well. They spread the ball around. They did what they're supposed to do. But they just kind of go through lulls. Like, there's just times where it doesn't feel like they're focused. And I do remember towards the end of the half, and this might be the best way to put it, when you can't run the ball consistently, you just really don't have much margin for error. You can go 3 and out really quickly because on one of those 3 and outs, Josh has Eric McAllister on a little slant route. It was probably an RPO. And he just threw it behind him, missed him. So 2nd and 10. Then they had a negative run play instead of a 3rd and long. And then he tried to get Jack Besh on the outside, and he just airmailed the ball, sailed it. in the sidelines, and suddenly now you're punting the football. So they just have these empty possessions that can be killers, but the most encouraging thing to me about the offense, and I said this last week after the Oklahoma State game, in the moments where they had to respond with a big drive, they did it. They went down and scored right before halftime to go up 21-13. And that was a crazy moment. They had 3rd and 25 after Josh got called for intentional grounding, and that intentional grounding penalty pushed them out of field goal range because it's a spot foul. So they were near the 40-yard line. So, honestly, I thought on that 3rd down, they were just going to try to get like 10 or 12 yards, set up a more manageable field goal, send Limmerman out there to kick it. Well, Josh ends up floating one up there for J.P. Richardson, and he works back to the ball. He goes and high points it and makes the catch, steps out of bounds a yard short of the first down marker. And I was actually like screaming at my TV when they came out to go for it on 4th and 1, because in my mind, I'm like, risk reward wise, like the reward here is if you get a first down with only 20 seconds left in the half, you get the first down, you're giving yourself a couple chances at the end zone, and that's it. But they blocked it up well. Savion took the snap, and he not only got the first down, but he got a touchdown. So that was a big swing, and then they went down and scored again with the first possession of the second half to make it 28-13. And those are the big response drives I'm talking about when the game's in the balance and you find a way to make a statement and extend that lead. Savion was really good again today. His final stats, he had 80 yards rushing on 9 carries, 2 touchdowns on the ground, only had 3 catches for 16 yards, but they continue to move him around, and whether it's at running back or at quarterback, he's effective finding run lanes. He had one play today where they were running like a counter play with him in the backfield as running back, and he ran into traffic, and he just reversed field and took the ball like 30 yards. He's making those kinds of plays each and every week. And it's awesome that he did that on senior day. Jack Besh got over 1,000 yards receiving. Not a real prolific night for him, Only 3 catches for 25 yards, but did get that 1,000-yard mark. So congratulations to him on an outstanding season. And shout out to J.P. Richardson. 6 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. First receiving touchdown this year. He had that punt return for a touchdown against Kansas, but caught a crossing pattern, stopped, reversed field, juked out the defender, found the end zone, and Josh got rocked on that play on a blitz up the middle. Somebody asked me, I tried to go live in postgame, and my internet was not working properly, and so I had to close it out. Somebody asked me if he left a little bit early, Josh Hoover I'm talking about, because he was injured. I didn't see anything about him being injured in the postgame comments. I feel like it was more just, hey, this guy's taking some hits today. Let's get him out of there. But, yeah, he took some shots. And somebody came on a safety blitz and just hit him right in the ribs. But, I mean, to Josh's credit, he hung in there and threw a great ball and found J.P. Richardson for the touchdown. O-line struggled a little bit in pass protection. There were too many free runners. And I know part of that is, like, Josh has to recognize those things pre-snap and help guys get in the right blocking assignments. But there was a lot of those plays where, I mean, Arizona seemed to have a pretty clear plan. We're going to try to heat you up and force the ball out of your hands quickly. But you have to find a way to adjust and block that up better. However, that being said, like, they kept the pocket clean. Josh ran the ball a little bit today. He pulled it on his own read and got a first down. He scrambled and converted a 3rd down late in the second quarter. So he's seeing more of those opportunities. I mean, he's never going to be a dude who's like a dual threat necessarily, but it does feel like he's getting more comfortable using his legs, even though when he does scramble in those passing situations, it always looks like a total last resort. Like, okay, I guess if I have to, I'll tuck this ball and run. Did get that first down, though, to extend that drive and go get a touchdown right before halftime. I did make a joke in the second quarter. I was like, I feel like I jinxed Josh because on Friday I did a show about how awesome he's been lately. Well, he threw that interception I talked about. And then really the entire second quarter just looked off kilter and off balance. Wasn't making good throws. And Josh has a habit when he struggles in that way whether it's turnover-wise or just not making plays and converting third downs, to start acting like there's miscommunication happening on the routes, which maybe there is. I just feel like that's a well that he's gone to frequently in the middle of a game. At a certain point, it's like, okay, you got to figure out if it's that much of an issue, you got to figure out why it's happening. But also maybe don't blame your wideouts for not converting on a 3rd and 10 when you're running a fade pattern to the outside and you don't put it anywhere near Jack Bash. But he righted the ship in the second half. Thought he played well, played tough. And aside from that kind of head-scratching interception and some issues in the second quarter, I thought Josh played a really good game. They ran the ball better today. I mean, I said 147 yards, averaged about 4 yards a carry. But once again, a lot of that was Savion. Now, Cam Cook had a couple touchdowns, which was good to see. His second touchdown was a really good run. I mean, they kind of strung it out to the outside, and he cut it up north and south and got the touchdown. Jeremy Payne had a long 30-yard touchdown run. Arizona's bad, you guys. I mean, I guess I should have put that caveat in there at the start of the show, but you watched it. That's a team that's struggling. But TCU took care of their business, and they didn't – I mean, aside from kind of allowing them to get back in the game in the second quarter there, after that they put their foot on the gas and did what they're supposed to do. But I think, narrative-wise, they've figured out a way to run the ball, but it's in a very specific design and package and with one player who will not be here next year. So you got to keep chipping away at what you're doing. And I don't know what this running back room is going to look like next season as far as who the starter is going to be. It feels like in these last few games, I think that's smart. They're just kind of throwing the kitchen sink out there, allowing guys to rotate in and out and saying, hey, please somebody emerge. Like, somebody show us why we should stick with you as opposed to everybody else. And Cam Cook's had some good moments over the last 2 weeks, but it's mainly been in the red zone. It just hasn't been consistent, but they're also not getting consistent series. Like, Trent Battle ended up playing a decent amount of the game today. But with Savion involved too now, there's just not a lot of rhythm into who gets the carries, if that makes sense. But offensively, overall, I thought they did a good job. And in the second half especially, it felt like on early downs, they were more efficient, put themselves in better second and third down situations, and that turned the tables for sure. Defensively, I said in the Keys to the Game segment, I was like, you got to find a way to curtail Taratua McMillan's production as much as possible. But I also mentioned, I think the other side of that is don't allow other people to beat you. And for the most part, I thought TCU did a pretty good job against McMillan. He had 9 catches for 115 yards, no touchdowns. He has moments for sure, but he didn't just completely take over the game like he has in some other contests this year. Chris Hunter had a good ball game, 8 catches, 47 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's really the key. And on both touchdowns, he made great catches. But other than that, TCU did a great job. Sam Olsen beat Nnamdi Obaizor down the seam one time. But besides that play, TCU kind of handled their business and did a great job. Johnny Hodges had a big stop on a 4th and 2 play to sort of leave. If there was any doubt that TCU was going to win, that was kind of the final nail in the coffin, which is cool to see. Bud Clark had an interception on either the first or second play of the game. Just read Noah Fafita's eyes well, closed in on it, made a pick, got his foot down, and TCU went and scored off that. I thought the defensive scheme was sort of strange at times. It felt like they were just giving a lot of space to the Arizona wideouts, a lot of cushion. And I get part of that is you don't want to get beat over the top. They have playmakers, especially with McMillan. And that was one key. I mean, T-Mac had some catches along the sideline that were for big gains, but TCU didn't allow him to get that vertical passing game going, which is a big part of what Arizona does. They did a nice job containing the Arizona run game. What did they end up with? 38 yards rushing. Quali Conley had 42 of those. He was the leading rusher. But really good job on first and second down of, finding a way to limit those plays and force third and longs. And even when the momentum was on Arizona's side there in the second quarter, they had that 14-0 lead. They allowed one touchdown, but then they forced Arizona to settle for 2 field goals, which ended up being big because TCU was able to go score before halftime. And, just some guys that impressed me. I liked what I saw from Javon McIvor. I think he continues to make things happen. He did give up a touchdown today and a scramble drill, but he's just around the ball. He makes plays and he's physical. So I like that aspect of it. I will say, I did like a transfer portal priority list this past week. And at linebacker, I was sort of like, well, I think they're pretty solid at linebacker. They got to improve this linebacker play. I mean, Johnny Hodges had that big tackle, but he also whiffed on a few. Obizor is struggling in coverage. They've been serviceable, but there's also times where they're getting beat. I do like Max Carroll, both what he's done on defense and then he plays on special teams. And I noticed today he had a couple tackles on special teams on kickoff team, and he was getting up and just like immediately drawing with the return man, which that might not make everybody happy, but I think you need some of that in your life if you're going to be a good football team. So that was encouraging to see. But I mean, overall, I think defensively this team is playing at about as high of a level as they can at the moment. And Andy Avalos has done a great job unlocking effort and intensity. I believe the fundamental aspects of it, tackling, all the things that you're like, if you're going to be good in football, you have to do this well. They're starting to hone in on that. They forced a few more turnovers the last few weeks. Part of that's competition, but they've gotten the job done. If I would have told you I get it. The schedule's the schedule. They've caught some breaks with the teams they've avoided. The Big 12 is just eating itself alive. BYU loses to Arizona State today. Kansas defeats Colorado. I don't think it's great for the league in the playoff discussion, but it does make for entertaining conference week to week. And if I told you when they lost to Houston and going into that bye week, they were 3-3, if I was like, they're going to end up 8-4, I don't think you would have believed me. But if that was the prognosis I gave you, I think most of you would say, okay, I'm okay with that. And they have a chance to do that. They're not there yet, but if they can go beat Cincinnati on the road, they'll be an 8-4 football team at the end of the regular season, which would be a 3-win improvement from last year. And I think that's a step in the right direction. I really do. And I'm glad that they could send the seniors out in a good way today, right? When we come back, I'll touch on just something I'll touch on a big picture issue that I'm sensing right now. And we'll also just get into some random things that I like from today's game. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. FanDuel is where the game starts. If you hit on one $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. NBA, college football, college basketball, NFL. It's all there for you. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. You win one $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. You're a sports junkie. That's why you're listening to this podcast. If you ever thought about jumping into this world, now's the time to do it. Again, that's FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. FanDuel is where the game starts. They're a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. I'm going to ramble here for a minute. I don't really know how to properly describe this, but watching especially the first half of that game, the environment seemed pretty uninspiring. Now, I know students are on Thanksgiving break. People, are getting ready to go out of town for Thanksgiving. Like, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. I've also been surprised. It just feels like, and I don't know if it's because the team is basically out of Big 12 title contention or the season hasn't gone as planned. It does feel like some fans have checked out. And I know I'm not talking to the people that are listening and watching this, because if you're doing that on a daily basis, you're not checked out. But it doesn't, even with the recent uptick in performance, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of excitement around the program right now. And I don't know how to change that, but it's just an observation. I believe that's an uphill battle Sonny's going to have to fight this offseason. to get people to buy in again, because I think some folks feel like they've been burned a little bit with the way the last 2 years have played out. So just something to watch. Random observations or things that stood out to me today. I talked about Max Carroll getting down there, trash talking on special teams. I like to see that. DJ Rogers had a nice day. Not like a crazy stat sheet, only 2 catches for 43 yards, but both catches were for first downs. And he caught a pass from Ken Seals. He got out in space and made something happen. Got TCU down in the red zone, which is cool to see. They're going to be replacing production there. And, the Drake Dabney thing was it's kind of been an up and down season. Rogers feels like that's a dude that you hope can just step in there and take the torch this offseason. I think he's headed in the right direction. So encouraging to see him play well today. I talked about McIvor. I've just been impressed with his physicality, his ability to go make plays. I think in general, the secondary played well today. There were times where I was like, man, just squeeze that route a little bit more, because it felt like they were giving Arizona too much space. But they limited big plays. They had the interception. Bud should have had 2 interceptions today. He had one hit him right in the hands. He just unfortunately dropped it. Feels like as the years progress, though, they've played better together and just played at a higher level, which has been good to see. And then, that running back rotation is super interesting. Eric McAllister made some things happen. He continues to look like a dude that's just the next man up. Savion Williams, it was his birthday recently. Jack Best, JPR, and Savion did a press conference together after the game. And Jack and JP had the media sing happy birthday to Savion, which is cool to see. I think the vibe and culture around this team is solid. And that's a good thing. Anytime, I believe it does speak to this coaching staff, and that even though there's been some challenges, been some things that haven't gone their way, they've been able to keep this thing together. There hasn't seemed to be a lot of finger pointing or anything like that. So, that's impressive, right? Like, that means something in the grand scheme of things. And it's just nice that we're seeing a tight-knit group. Wouldn't mind seeing more Ryan Hughes next week. Bless Harris had a tough day at the office, struggled a little bit. So I think, in these last couple of games, you got to find out what you got from some of these young guys. Pass rush wasn't as effective as I would like, but they got home a few times, made some disruptive plays. And the season finale, or the regular season finale, is next week, as TCU will take on Cincinnati. Cincinnati will be fighting for bowl eligibility. I also saw it's going to be pretty cold there, as you would expect, in Ohio in late November. But I believe the high is 39. And we'll see what time that thing kicks off. But interested to see this offense in the elements like that. If you're going to throw the ball a lot, that's going to be a tough environment to do it. So we'll have coverage of that all week long here on Locked On Horned Frogs. TCU 7-4. They've rallied really well after that rough start to the season. It's good to see the vibes kind of back to a good place again. Sonny had some good things to say in the press conference. No injuries of note that I know of. Josh took a lot of hits today, but seems like he's fine. One more regular season game. We'll have a show on Monday previewing that Cincinnati matchup, also talking more about this victory against Arizona. Again, your final score, TCU wins 49-28, 6 rushing touchdowns today. We'll talk about it more this next week. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast.